Welcome back to a best of 3 series of top level StarCraft 2. What I've got for you today is a series of TVP played as the very first games of the GSL Code S Season 1 for 2025. Now spawning right here in the top left hand corner, we have a man who has got a lot of fans out there because he plays some dirty, filthy Protoss gameplay. We're looking at none other than SOS's main Nexus. His opponent down in the bottom left, playing with the blue Terran SCVs. One of the very best Terran versus Protoss players in the world. We have none other than Cure. Alrighty, so these games were played, well, as of me casting it, a couple of days ago. And in a series like this, right, SOS is 100% the underdog. So SOS won the StarCraft 2 World Championships twice back in the day. He basically went, well, under the radar for many, many years. He didn't really play a whole lot. Every once in a while, he seemed to like play a bunch of games here and there and tried to qualify for a tournament. But then this time around, this year, he, I guess, heard that there's a massive tournament on the horizon with a $700,000 prize pool, and he decides to once again pick up the Protoss pieces. Now, of course, if you've been playing a lot of StarCraft over the last decade and a half, this game has been around for quite a while at this point, you tend to get a lot better over time too. If you're somebody like, for example, Cure, you have been hammering away at your macro game. And in general, when it comes to modern StarCraft 2, it's very difficult to be a cheesy player. If you're a cheesy player, aka the style that SOS likes to play, he likes to play very aggressively, in general, it's just not as effective now as it was a decade ago because everybody's just on the whole better. Execution is cleaner, defense obviously is more refined, and in general, players are just better at the game. So, since this game is now so mature, how in the world do you exploit the different opponent's strategies? How do you try and deal with the opponent's shenanigans if you are SOS? Now, SOS is somebody who can play the macro game, but he rarely does it. We find ourselves on Persephone, which is the first map in this series, and there is a probe that I've been following around, hiding on the right side. Okay, even Cure is not entirely convinced that something here is very normal. He's checking the golden minerals at the 3 o'clock position. I think SOS probably does plan on planting down a proxy there eventually, but for now, all of this is pretty straightforward, I think. Yeah, we have a gateway, 2 more over here in the natural. The only weird part about this Protoss strat at this point is that there is no tech. There is no Twilight, no Stargate, no Robo, no nothing. This is triple gateway, and if Cure paid attention to it, I mean, he could scout this at the front right now. He would be able to put 1 on 1 together because these timings are all a little bit strange. Okay, Proxy Pylon is now building at the bottom of the map. Cure, in the meantime, has gone for the CC. Pretty conservative start, by the way, here for Cure. Opting to go for the very fast 1-1-1 rather than the fast expansion. I guess it makes sense, because if he allows this game to go the distance, right, if he can force the game to go a little bit longer, he will likely be the favorite. Cure's Terran versus Protoss, by the way, has been monstrous for a very, very long time. Where are we going to build? Are we gonna do another gate? Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. No, are we just gonna warp in slow reinforcements? This is the latest possible push that you can ever go for, man. If we're still... Yeah, no, we're just gonna use this as a warp-in location. The warp-ins are gonna be slow, though. So when you don't have your pylon attached to a gateway or a nexus, the warp-ins are way slower than they would be if you did. In the meantime, though, there is a medevac drop going in. There is no blink. There is nothing other than just a bunch of stalkers, and they are trying to be a jerk to the mineral line of the Terran player. In the meantime, though, this drop in the main could certainly hurt. You gotta try and boost away there. Luckily, he does save as many units as can fit inside of that medevac. Probe is still hanging around at this part too. And this is one of those weird things that SOS does. It technically doesn't make a lot of sense, but realistically, it's working out surprisingly well, assuming he doesn't take a ton of damage from this single medevac drop. You have this image, right, of being a bit cheesy, and because of that, Cure has decided to also play around it, targeting down that Cyclone, by slowing down his own eco quite a bit. So this is not really that's a little unfortunate. He did not need to lose that Stalker, but If you could actually just play the game a little bit longer, SOS's work account is totally fine to actually just sit back and play a macro match. Losing a single pylon is not that big of a commitment. Banshee over there did get a kill on an additional Stalker. And he is going to find out indeed where these units have been warped in from. Just looking around, making sure that there's nothing all too, well, funky happening in the far bottom right-hand corner as he decides to send the Banshee out. Yeah. May want to keep it at home for base defense, because already you've forced a lot of warp-ins on the other side of the map. Okay. Ooh, barely out of range. Apparently Persephone does have a little bit of a dead spot there between the natural and the main. Could have been a disaster. This map is brand new, so you have to be aware of the exact positioning there. Although I guess you could probably still scoot it a little bit further to the right as well. Bit of wiggle room. And now finally, nearly 6 minutes into the game, is when the Twilight Council finishes. In a normal game of StarCraft 2, this is something that you rush out. This is what... Oh, okay. Well, normally you go for Blink. He decides to go for Charge first. He also hits a massive supply block in the meantime, though. And that is the type of stuff that is not really, quote-unquote, allowed in modern SC2. He really needs to warp in another pylon if he doesn't want to get, well, another supply block on the back of this. Banshee decides to fly through all of the speed circles. There's another one as well on the other side of the map. Looks like one Banshee in the main. Maybe one Banshee over to the natural expansion. No third Nexus yet. Very late charge. We're gonna go into a Templar Archives. So maybe... Ooh, this is nice. Good snipe. Maybe go into Storm or just Archon Zealot. Both of those are technically viable, but I can imagine if you're Cure at this point, you're also sort of wondering what in the world is happening on the other side of the map. He decides to play it safely, though. I wouldn't mind seeing an Engineering Bay. Oh, he already has one. That's good. Engineering Bay, +1. Go into the Combat Shields research. He's already started up a third command center. All of this makes a lot of sense here for the South Korean Terran. In general, in this matchup, it's Protoss who should be ahead with the expansion timings. So whenever a Nexus is building right around the same time as a command center, that usually favors Terran. There's going to be a huge power spike here for Cure in a minute or two. So we're going to have all of these upgrades finish up. He really should go for the +1 for the infantry upgrades. I'm not entirely sure why we aren't. We still have that medevac occupied inside of the main base. A Reaper is inside of it still too. Banshees have decided to group up together. So 2 Banshees is enough to one-shot a worker. Decides to not attack move it. He's playing this very safely. Cure really doesn't want to take any chances. And sometimes when you try to play overly safe, you do find yourself falling behind against just a regular good old macro game. So far, he's fine, but he does need to be careful. All things considered, actually, considering the Twilight Council was so late, the Storm is still very quick. SOS does a big transfer with a ton of workers because already the main base is starting to run low. At least the skinny mineral fields that you start the game off with, those are running out over the next minute or two, so he decides to transfer those workers. There's finally the +1 infantry attacks. I think you're probably intended on starting that, well, just a little bit sooner. Ooh, my god. Storm drop attempted. It's a cool play here from SOS, but ultimately he hasn't killed that many workers. I think maybe only a handful there. Majority of the damage done. Late recall. Majority of the damage done already earlier from those Stalkers. Nice attempts here by SOS, but ultimately most of it just has not achieved too much. Robo Bay on the back of this for the Protoss. The idea behind this now, I guess, is to just try and build up an army with multiple sources of splash damage. But now Cure has got what he aimed for. So Cure went into this series, I can imagine, aiming to play a long game, and now he gets to that. He gets to do that. He gets to do whatever he pleases. So with the third command center now secured, Ghost Academy makes a lot of sense. Going into Ghost here is going to be a fantastic weapon against basically anything Protoss in the mid game. Especially, though, against High Templar, Zealots, maybe an Archon or two. Very powerful. Ooh, nice interception right there with those auto turrets. Forcing the Zealots to charge onto a target they really weren't meant to charge at. Cure can start doing a little bit of an elevator play into the main base too, if that is how he is so inclined, because this is an easy direction to be pushing in, but I guess just, well, shutting down the Cyber Core already makes it so that the Stalker research is not going to be too useful. You do need a Cybernetics Core in order to warp in a Stalker, and he only has, well, 7 at this point in time. A little bit of a warping on the other side of the map. SOS taking a page out of MaxSpex's book. MaxSpex always very, very annoying with this, but look at the giant wall that Cure has been making. Easy defense, though, against only 2 Zealots. Yeah, and this is now, as he does elevator a bunch of units into the main base, this is all very, very shaky. Like, how in the world do you break this now as the Protoss player? He's making a bunch of workers for the top right-hand corner. That's nice. He's got a decent economy. Cure decides to not take any risks. Aye. He doesn't have to go home. I think if this was a ladder game, Cure would certainly stick around there for a little bit longer. He's probably wondering where the resources are going from SOS, so he never knows if there's just about a bunch of, I don't know, Colossi ready to spawn. Great pickup there, saving the ghosts. Yeah, this is Cure displaying it 100% safe. He does not feel the need to be too excessive, apparently, with the aggression. May as well make another command center, build up a bunker, maybe remake some of the lost SCVs here, but he's gonna get a whole lot of Zealots for his troubles. Totally fine. Prism is still out, though. And this is ultimately giving SOS a lot of wiggle room now to get multiple sources of splash damage. So obviously, we already had the High Templar. Now we already have the Colossi out, too. It's just a single one for the time being. But this isn't, yeah, this is gonna become a much more complex army for the Terran player to go up against. He keeps on checking the 3 o'clock base. Oh my god. They're so quick. Stimming through these speed circles? Suddenly the army arrives. Getting a kill on the 4th Nexus would be massive as well. He's playing so safely, though. I wonder if Cure is playing a little overly safe. He really could have just dived in there and killed the Nexus before that Protoss army ever arrived. Big storm, but he already blanketed most of that Protoss army, all with EMPs. Still, though, big warp in the meantime here. Could we target fire down that 1 Viking or 2 Vikings that are working on whatever they can? A little bit slow there by SOS, loses a Colossus because of it. Yeah, Cure just is massively ahead when it comes to the supply count. A huge Terran army is reinforcing towards the top right end too, and I think he is gonna be able to clean up this army, kill the Nexus, and with that win the game. At least that's what it feels like to me now. The reinforcements are nearly here. That speed circle also very nice. He could have stimped the units to get him across a little bit quicker. Well, Colossus at 1 health. Yeah, not gonna live for a whole lot longer. Now the Nexus gets targeted. Now the extra Colossus goes down. GG gets called, and Cure wins a relatively easy game number 1. So I did recently cast SOS go up against other players too, right? And I feel like it is a bit of a theme. He's got good ideas. He's got really nice plans throughout the game, but the execution is just a little bit shaky. And it's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. It's just that he's going up against world-class players now. And while these are strategies that I'm sure were great on the ladder when you go up against a random opponent, when you play... Well, I consider Cure's TVP to be probably top 3 in the world. When you play against one of the very best, it's just so difficult to actually inch ahead when you make macro mistakes. Like when you hit multiple supply blocks and you're just a little slow on the warp ins and every single one of your attacks is just slightly suboptimal. It's really difficult to win. So cool attempt right there by SOS, but he just fell a little short. And that's going to be a nice confidence boost there for Cure, because ultimately, I mean, Cure didn't really do anything fancy, right? Like he just opened up with a... So in this particular instance, he's going for a fast expo on the low ground. But he just opened up with was effectively like a 1 base 1-1-1. He did go for a command center eventually, but a double gas start. And I mean, he didn't have a huge economy, but he just denied every single one of the attacks. Did a bit of damage on the other side of the map, and then overpowered his opponent. Now, what is this? A proxy... A proxy robo facility together with a gateway. I'm guessing we can go warp prism juggling. At least that's the... He could go immortals, I guess. The problem is, most of the time when we see Protoss players proxy against Terran in 2025, it's not very common at all, but most of the time it's a Stargate. This used to be something we did very, very many years ago at this point. Like back in the day when SOS won the World Championships. I wouldn't be surprised if this was the type of strat he went for. It's Immortals. Yeah, this is old school. I think you go Immortal, War Prism, Immortal. So you can actually juggle it. This was brought back a couple years ago. Maybe 6-7 years ago by Haas. Recently. Recently, this was brought back by Haas, who's now been retired for several years. When he did it against Zerx. No, I think you go... really? We go Immortal into Immortal? Very old school. Medevac drop in the meantime, moving out. This is a skill check from Cure. Quadruple Medevac, or quadruple Widowmine, rather, inside of the Medevac. This is odd, dude. If you're Cure right now, look at it! He's building a freaking pylon over here. He's gonna plant shield batteries. Yeah. Knock, knock, knocking on the Terran's door. Yeah, there you go. Hit it with the Immortal. Immortal very good against armored things. Supply depots will fall very rapidly. Can't believe he's got the probe on the control group, by the way. All right, how about this drop? Ooh, that was close. Okay, reasonably well managed. Probes are gonna sacrifice themselves. Yeah. All of the Widow Mines are still alive, though. Why is the probe over here? Can we... Why did we... Are we not gonna build shield batteries? Why did we make a pylon there? Just to antagonize the opponent, I guess? In the meantime, more probes are dying. But that's all managed pretty well. Now the Cyclone over here, though. A nice body blocking. Using those SCVs to his advantage. Banshee now out as well. And that Banshee is gonna be a nuisance. Stalkers need to be targeting it down. Immortals, of course, cannot attack up. Good body block there again as well by Jimmy, who died immediately for the cause. I mean, he's done a lot of worker damage. Why was this pylon here? Can anybody tell me why the pylon was here? Nobody knows. Alright, well, ultimately the Medevac has been cleaned up entirely. Cure could have microed that a little bit better. Having continued presence there on the other side of the map could be huge, because now SOS can actually put all of his eggs in one basket. He can actually continue this aggression for a little bit longer. Very late, by the way, on the Prism. Finally... Yeah, he just went 2 Immortals and then nothing out of the Robo facility? Oh, a little bit wacky. I think with a Prism there, you could actually juggle your units out and at the very least keep the Immortals alive. Alright. This is still sketchy, though. There's just not a whole lot of units here for Cure. He's got 1 Medevac, 1 Banshee, 1 Siege Tank, and then a bunch of Marines. No bunker, no easy way to tank this. Adepts have decided to shade forward ahead of the rest of the pack. Target fires with the Immortal onto the Siege Tank, absolutely critical. And with the Immortal down, I mean... Or, sorry, the Siege Tank down, the Immortal can start working on a lot more targets. Still though, new Siege Tank now on the high ground. Please walk away out of that circle. More SCVs are dying. SOS, of course, does have an expansion. He's already thinking about making a 3rd. Maybe just sending the probe early. Hello, can we lift? Cure! Cure, we gotta lift! Cure, do you even lift, bruh? He does not lift. I have no idea why we didn't lift there. A rather sloppy game by Cure. But that's probably due to the fact that he's playing against something that he hasn't played against since about Heart of the Swarm. Like, genuinely. It's been a while, man. Oh, geez. We're juggling in the direction of the Marines? I find this very ambitious, very bold, but it's working out. No way. Okay, well... SOS looks like he's gonna get a point on the board in the most SOS-like way possible. Oh my god. Ooh. Keep juggling. Keep juggling. Lift up the weakened unit. There is once more a Banshee. Siege Tank is not gonna live for very long. Banshees, of course, have no air-to-air. Yeah, so that Prism is just gonna have a grand old time. Immortal drop harass in the back of the Terran's natural. When's the last time you've seen this? Oh, well, the Marines, they do kill the Medevac. Recall on the Immortals. Okay. Is this recoverable? I think with a 2nd command center, Cure would have had a decent shot. Right now, though, he needs to commit to an all-in. There's really no way he's gonna macro behind all of this. Yeah, 3rd Nexus in the meantime is building. I love that. I think this is okay. What a crazy game. And this once more proves, right, that top-level players in StarCraft 2 are fantastic until they start to think about the game. And this is a real issue, man. StarCraft 2 is such a fast-paced game that when you can force your opponent to use a little bit of brain power, thinking about what could possibly be happening, because this game is so wild, they just start tripping up. GG. Next up, we find ourselves on Maganatha. Let's see. Very normal start, at the very least, for both players, but this map is massive. There's just so many locations where Protoss could possibly be hiding something. And I think if the previous two games were anything to go off of, SOS is not likely to play a normal game. So normal in 2025 for Protoss in this matchup is to play the most flimsy strategies possible, right? You basically rely on Blink Stalkers to not die. It always kind of feels to me that as Protoss, you need to put in a lot of work to be even. It's really tricky, man. Like, you're only really even if you get some work done with the Stalkers, or say you're playing against a Zerg player, you need to kill a couple drones, and then you can finally start playing the game and be on an even footing. It's tough. Oh. Sorry, that's very funny to me. There was a second Adept that was supposed to be part of the wall-off, but it decided to walk away. Alright, ultimately it didn't get too much vision, but I believe the Twilight Council, yeah, it was spotted. Okay, so I'm guessing we're gonna go into good old Blink, maybe? Although so far SOS seems to have a fondness of Charge. Charge is nice because you don't have to micro, you just kind of send your units in and hope for the best. Now, Cure had some wonderful counterplay in the first game of this series by dropping down those auto turrets. Okay. You know what? The man doesn't want to be known as a cheeser, although he did already build a pylon on the other side of the map, and he is warping in 3 of those adepts. This is looking like a normal game from SOS, but then with a twist. Let's do the twist. Let's then do good. That's an old school song, dude. Ooh, love that Widowmine. Good dodging on the Widowmine. Look at the Jerry over here. Absolutely spasming out of his mind. Yeah, this is nice and all, but why are we not shading? That shade was so late. A late shade. Okay. Okay. That was not worth it. And now suddenly, right, you can go for Blink. But how in the world do you play it? Okay, he decides to just go for the third Nexus, regardless of losing those Marines on the other side of the map. It's certainly possible, but what happens now when Terran hits you in the face with their first main attack? It's not going to be here for another little while. Map is massive, so yeah, he doesn't yet have combat shields or Stimpak or anything cooking up. But that's the real problem now that you're thinking of as Protoss. How in the world do you now deal with those next attacks? Because everything gets built off of the early game, right? And the foundation here has been a little bit shaky, although by no means the end of the world. But now we're playing the most straightforward type of game that you can play here as Protoss against Cure. So let's see. Cure honestly looked a little shaken, though, from that previous match. This is the type of game that Cure will practice day in and day out. Charge on the back of this nice and quickly again. No Templar archives or anything. So there is no prism here. The proxy pylon, of course, has been killed. He's using the... Oh, he's using the adepts over here to draw the siege tank shots. Cure should have retargeted. Mass repair right now in the bunker is going to keep it alive. That was a cool attempt there by SOS, but not quite enough to get broken. Matter of fact, drop goes into the main base. He does have Blink available. Keep in mind that the medevac can easily be chased down. Nice targeting there as well onto the probes. He's still microing here at the front too, but that's a risky choice. Blink. Blink, 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 blink. Hello. Okay. We're just letting that escape at full HP. Fair enough. Looks like those guys just went into a stasis. They take a second to wake up, apparently. Okay, so the real threat is when these upgrades all finish up for Terran. Cure is going to hit a massive power spike. And it'll be up to the Protoss player here to defend. Now, he will not have splash damage. It's just going to be Stalkers and Zealots. Technically good. Against Siege Tank pushes in particular, you can overwhelm those with charge. Be nice if he can like try to engage it before it gets onto his base, or if he can try to delay the attack. But Cure is going to send out the Raven. I like it. He knows at this point that it's relatively safe. Fourth Nexus, I wouldn't even mind seeing one, man. If we're going to play full Gateway Man, I feel like we need to go full Gateway Man. Instead, we're going to go Robo Facility. It feels to me like SOS is slowly... I mean, I don't want to look into this too much, but I feel like... this is not the way to beat Cure. He's essentially playing a straight-up game against one of the best Terran versus Protoss players in the world. And he's doing it from a slight deficit. So how in the world do you hold these big attacks? Now, Cure has been playing very safely. This is from a GSL group where SOS was considered to be the weakest player in the group. So say, for example, if Cure loses this series, he could go up against the likes of Raynor, which is not a situation he wants to be in. That's not me being disrespectful. It's just, you know, the way that the groups work out. You want to try your best and win every single match, because in the GSO, it's absolutely critical. Ooh, I don't think you fight this in the middle of the map. It's a lot of Zealots. Yeah, I don't think you want to fight that SOS. Love the Widow Mines, by the way. He's only gone for a single Siege Tank here in the mix. Trying to get a choke onto this fourth Nexus. Widow Mines get burrowed all over the place, so it's difficult for the Zealots to charge in. If you charge them around the corner, you're going to take maximum amounts of splash damage. Nexus has already gone down. Decent force field here. Yeah, Cure decides to just stand his ground and fight. SOS hoped that with that aggressive move, the Protoss player would force the Terran player away, but Cure was not too scared. Colossus does begin. Fourth Nexus does restart. Cure right now, though, should be building up the Ghosts. Does he have a Ghost Academy yet? That's an Armory. He can go for a Ghost Academy in a sec, I guess. Not really in a rush as far as that goes, but always nice to have against a Protoss player in general, but especially against these charged up heavy armies. I think he's gonna completely... He's just gonna let his foot on the gas, right? He's not gonna back up. He's gonna try and, yeah, just be the aggressor here completely throughout the rest of this game. And this is the tricky part about playing Protoss. This is not the type of unit composition that gives you a lot of combat potential. You can maybe try and, I don't know, hope to roll a lucky strike with a disruptor hit or two, but at this point it's very much so up to Cure to make a mistake. When you play full Zealot Stalker with a little bit of splash damage on the back of it, you just don't have a lot of wiggle room to climb back into the match. Like, your problem is falling behind before this point. Cure's army, yeah, is going to heavily outgrow that of the Protoss player now. You need to play this off of like 80 workers or so if you're Protoss. You're coming in from a couple different angles, playing it very conservatively, doesn't really want to take any chances. SOS does have a bunch of shield batteries though, so that's nice. Backs up to the safety of those. I'm actually surprised SOS decided to play a straight up game here. I think this is the SOS normal. That is something that goes through your mind too when you're a bit of a cheesy player, because people will call you out on it, right? And maybe SOS was like, well, I've been practicing these cheesy strats, but if I just win with that, people are gonna call me a cheeser. Maybe I need to go and, you know, think about my image somewhat, but you're now going for a Ghost Academy. He's fired up 2-2. He could be way more aggressive. Like, Cure could probably jump this base and gobble up the Protoss army. He really doesn't need to draw this out. But he knows that a lot of important games are on the line here, so you're way better off playing it safe. So he's following the age-old adage of when you're ahead, try to get more ahead. This is now giving SOS some wiggle room, though. SOS is building up a fifth base in the far top right that at this point has been unscouted. He's doing a good job cleaning up these drops as well. Cure has a real opportunity to just go and attack move across the map and win. He'll probably go with either 2-2 or when he's maxed out. He's now mixing in Ghosts as well. But this is the type of game where sometimes you might be wondering if you're playing overly safe. Because this is a Protoss player who could have been punished for all of this shenanigans a while ago. He decided to respect the shield batteries, but I think he's had several minutes now where he could quite literally F2A move straight across the map and win. Oh wow. SOS accidentally killing one of his own zealots there by knocking down the rocks. Okay. Medevac drop. It's joined by a Raven now.
Upgrade complete.
Just hanging out. At this point, Cure should realize that if this is not where the base is, it should be over there. Little zealot run by, at least attempted, but a planetary is already done. A lot of Marines were set up at home. The bunker never got salvaged over here. Man, Cure's playing so safe. He even marches his army back home. If he loses this, he's gonna regret it for a long time. If this was a ladder game, he'd be way more aggressive. Is this then ultimately where we want to stand and fight? I mean, it's a lot of Colossi. I was gonna say, this is risky. Nice EMPs, though. Building up the Viking count, not taking any chances. Disruptors now joining in the fray as well. I love the idea of disruptors, mostly because it's another thing that Terran players will have to play against. Early on, when it's just zealots and stalkers, Protoss doesn't really pack that much of a punch. Like, it's not super complex for Terran players, at least to micro against. But when you're playing against these very complex late-game unit compositions, suddenly, like, for example, the speed circles, right? It can become a huge problem. SOS cuts this army in half. Great opportunity, honestly, for the Protoss player to slice up some of those troops, and he does get the job done. Base in the top right, though, has been spotted now. SOS did build a lot of static defense there. He's got some good money in the bank. He could start thinking now, as he's sitting at 88 workers, about a potential late-game transition if he wants to. Yeah, and that's exactly what is happening right now on the other side of the map. Cure has gone into a fusion core. He already built another starport. A 6th Nexus now, coming up. I wonder if Cure is gonna regret this. Like, there is such a thing as too many forms of protection, right? I think. Cure really does not want to take any risks. He's like, I'll wear another condom. What about I do another one? He's about 7 condoms deep right now, okay? It's too many, Cure. We're starting to miss the point. I mean, at this point, if you look at the army of SOS, he's got 5 Colossi, 29 Zealots. This is by no means an amazing army, but it's pretty darn good, considering he was dead in the water like 5 minutes ago. He's done an excellent job climbing back up. Now suddenly, he might be able to strike. He will lose a base for it, but he might be able to strike with half of the Terran army not present. And that is a real opportunity for him to... Yeah, I mean, he's got so many Colossi. 5 Colossi right now available. There are Vikings, though, 10 of them. And they do have +2 attacks as well. Stalkers are trying their best to target fire all of this down. Nexus, in the meantime, did die in the top right-hand corner. And you know what? Despite the fact that Cure's army is not even all together, and this was the entirety of SOS's force, minus the warpins that he used in the top right, this was still an excellent fight for Cure. Okay, what do I know, man? Maybe 7 condoms is the way to go. Yeah. And you know what? You gotta hand it as well here to Cure. Like, it is quite impressive to play it this safe. Because you know you are making the game harder for yourself. But you also know that, theoretically, if you do everything right, you increase the odds of you winning. Now, I think he had about an 80% probability if he just would have attacked earlier, which is usually enough in a game of StarCraft, but this man won at 90% probability. It does mean that you have to deal with all of those disruptors and the 12 sources of splash damage that Protoss players are known for. But excellent series here by Cure. He obtains the victory. 2-1.